Hey there, fellow bibliophiles. Sam here. I'm going to do another couple of book review videos. Um, as you know, my principal interest is in metaphysical, occult, witchcraft, that sort of thing. Strong interest in history as well, so I tend to go for the historical stuff rather than grimoires when I'm doing book reviews here. So today I've pulled together a pile of books on the roles of women in new religious movements, not exclusively occult new religious movements, but a wider range than that. Just out of interest, really. Women are underrepresented in leadership, but they are even more underrepresented in the historical record, looking at the leadership in new religions, and I think it's a good thing to sort of correct the record a little bit. So I've got, like, I don't know, 10 books here, and I'll walk through them fairly quickly, just to give you some idea of some of the current material to read, and things that you might want to dig into a bit more um, for your own interest. So, to start with, this is an older book. Moon Sisters, Krishna Mothers, and Rajneesh Lovers, Women's Roles in New Religions by Susan Jean Palmer, from Syracuse University Press, 1994. Now, even though a couple of these groups have substantially changed, or in some cases splintered or pretty well disappeared, a lot of what she has to say about the different roles that are assigned to women, the different types of ways that women as a concept is seen in new religious movements, the gender relations between women and men, and so on, are still very valid and very interesting. Um, she talks about three basic approaches. Um, Sex polarity, that is, women and men are different from one another and have very different roles in the religious movement. Um, Women are the sexual complementarity, that is, women and men are different but necessary to each other, so that the um, the roles of women and men together make an entire person or entire family. And the third one, which is sexual unity groups, which basically say that women and men, gender is irrelevant, that our fundamental nature, our fundamental spiritual nature is the same, and that gender differences that layer over top of these can pretty much be dispensed with. Very interesting book, interesting discussion, based on quite a bit of field work in different new religious movements. Yeah, good place to start dealing with this whole gendering in new religious movements. Another book, Female Leaders in New Religious Movements. This one is a compilation edited by Inga, Bardsen, Tollefsen, and Christian Giudice. It's from Palgrave, published in 2017. And they talk about a wide range of women leadership. Ellen White of the Seventh-day Adventist movement, a Christian movement. Elizabeth Clare Prophet of the Church Universal and Triumphant. Several different Hindu offshoots, gurus, Olivia Robertson, the priestess of Isis, a pagan, and various others, Starhawk's feminist witchcraft, the whole issue that emerged around women's spirituality and transgender rights in the United States in the 2010s that is still festering away there to some extent. Interesting stuff, quite a wide range, and it's all quite worth a read. Unfortunately, Palgrave books tend to be pricey, but the quality is always excellent. So go to your university library, see what you can find. Here's another one from Palgrave, Sexuality and New Religious Movements, edited by Henrik Bogdan and James R. Lewis. Let me just see. Yeah, it's Palgrave, 2014. Again, it's a compilation, so there's a variety of different voices here. Dealing with Mormon fundamentalists, the Branch Davidians, the Osho, otherwise known as Rajneesh movement, talking about Giudice, the New Age and occult philosopher, sexuality in contemporary Wicca, Satanism, the Raelian movement, and yes, again, just an excellent collection. Some very, very interesting, very good stuff in here. I think it opens up a lot of fascinating territory for discussion around issues of gender and new religious movements. This one, Women in New Religions by Laura Vance, published by New York University Press in 2015. Again, the good in-depth discussion of the roles of women in several new religions, and how they changed in reaction to pressure from the outside world and changes within the religious movement itself. I found the discussion of Mormonism, in particular, the strong role of women in leadership in early Mormonism during the polygamist period, absolutely fascinating. Mormonism experienced a great deal of pressure from the outside world and gave up polygamy as a condition of joining the United States in the 1880s. Although there still are Mormon polygamist sects, they are by no means female positive. They're very patriarchal. But it's a fascinating discussion. She deals with Seventh-day Adventism, the Family International, also formerly known as the Jesus People, various other things, and Wicca, and yeah, just a very good book. She has a number of questions for discussion. This would be used as a textbook in religious studies courses. Very clearly written, well researched, provocative, and quite interesting. And also not ridiculously expensive, unlike the other really good books here. Okay, another one. Women and Gender Issues in British Paganism, 1945 to 1990, by Shai Feraro, Palgrave, and 20 2020. A very interesting discussion of how paganism, we think of paganism as being, necessarily strongly women positive, feminist, LGBTQ friendly, and so on. But these were not the original positions of the founding fathers of paganism, Gerald Gardner, Alex Sanders, and it was through engagement with the matriarchal study groups and women's liberation movement in the 70s and 80s that that the movement became what it currently is. He talks about individual case studies of British goddess movement women, Dianic witches, the different places of engagement where the different streams of goddess movement, paganism, Wicca, came together. Glastonbury, the Greenham Common encampment, summer festivals. It's very, it's an interesting, detailed, specialized, but detailed discussion of the evolution of a new religious movement, specifically around issues of gender and women's leadership and women's roles. Good book. Okay, now I'm going to, jump to a completely different stream of things. We Pursue Our Magic, A Spiritual History of Black Feminism by Marina Magloire. University of North Carolina Press, 2023. I'm fairly familiar with white American feminist literature, but there was a whole parallel stream of feminism in the black communities that I am much less familiar with, and it was really quite fascinating reading about a number of women, some of whose names were familiar to me, but some of whom I had barely heard of or not heard of at all. And the way that voodoo, Santeria, the African-derived diasporic religions, influenced their scholarship and activism. Writers like Lucille Clifton, Audre Lorde, Toni Cade Bambara, Lorraine Hansberry, and various others. There was a lot of direct or indirect influence from the Afro-diasporic religions into this whole stream of Black American feminism, and it's very, very worth reading. A number of things struck me. One is that these Black American feminists found themselves challenged around each facet of that identity. That is, as Black, they thought, okay, African, everybody in Africa is going to accept me as another Black person, and they found that it wasn't the case. That in fact, Africa is much more culturally, politically, spiritually complex than simple skin color identification. American, again, they went out into the world, and they were judged as Americans, not as Black people or as feminist people, and that clash of identities was quite telling, especially when they went to places like Haiti that had been conquered and colonized by the United States at various points. And of course, as women, they were in liberation movements, liberation movements around issues of race in particular, and found that as women, those movements were actually pretty darned patriarchal as well. So all of these interesting intersecting identities are dealt with quite well in her book, and provocative, interesting, opens up a whole new channel, new stream of thought around feminism, and of course the intersection of feminism and alternative spirituality. Which brings me to another book, Divine Feminine, Theosophy and Feminism in England by Joy Dixon, published by, published by Johns Hopkins University Press in 2001. This is one of my favorite history books. It's just such a brilliant piece of work. Very, very well researched, well documented, about the intersection of Theosophy and occult spirituality and the first wave feminist movement, the suffragist movement in the United Kingdom. Although she deals with the United Kingdom almost exclusively, but the same intersection of ideas occurred here in Canada and also in the United States. How does the occult, particularly the Theosophical movement and the Order of the Golden Dawn, had substantial positive roles for women. A lot of women were in leadership roles in these movements, and so necessarily they had to deal with issues of gender. What is the appropriate kind of gender expression for women and men? What about sex? What about families? How do all of these things work in terms of a spiritual approach? And there were a variety of different, as you can expect, there were a variety of different answers to this question. With maternal feminism, a number of women argued that women's greatest expression was as mothers, and that they could be the mothers to the country, to the world, and that the separate spheres was okay so long as the women's sphere was valued more strongly. And some others who were sexual radicals of one sort or another, lesbians or in open relationships, argued that that gendered separate spheres were inherently oppressive to women inside of these spiritual and occultist movements. Very, very interesting book. Like I say, it's an excellent history. It's very well documented. It's I think is an essential read on women in new religious movements and in the occult. And another one, another Victorian era history, Satanic Feminism, Lucifer as the Liberator of Women in 19th-Century Culture by Per Faxneld, and Oxford University Press, 2017. This is an astonishing book. It's brilliant. It's extremely well documented. It's quite wide-ranging. It's a strong cultural, literary, and spiritual discussion of the images of Satan, Lucifer, as a liberator, as a rebel against unjust authority in Victorian culture, 19th century culture, not just in the United Kingdom, but more broadly in Europe and in the United States as well. He deals with several reoccurring motifs: romantic and socialist Satanism, theosophical Luciferianism, and female celebrations of Eve, Gothic literature, the images of witches as rebels against patriarchy, and images that are still quite prominent in the occult and metaphysical communities. Lucifer as a lesbian's best friend. Rebellious role play with several prominent women who express themselves as, the femme fatale or a satanic figure, folks like Theta Vera. Just a tremendous book. Very, very interesting, very worth a read, and illuminating around the way that religious ideas, especially around old Nick, and gender work together, and how you can use one to subvert the other. You can overturn gender conventions effectively and artistically. There's also quite a bit good discussion of satanic or satanic-inspired art in here. Very, very good book. So, yes, I just have a couple more here. I know I'm rattling through them fairly quickly, but, that's what I do generally. This one, Radical Spirits, Spiritualism and Women's Rights in 19th-Century America by Anne Braude. Indiana University Press. In this edition is 2001. The first edition was 1989. Spiritualism today, and our image of spiritualism. Spiritualism today is a very small and obscure movement. We think of it as being something that eccentric old ladies do spiritualism. Spiritualism was, from the 1850s when it started to about 1900, or perhaps even a little later, a mass movement involving millions of people. It was a strongly positive movement with a focus on the equality of women and men. It engaged a number of people who were involved in the anti-slavery movement in the United States and elsewhere were spiritualists. Many socialists were spiritualists. It was a meeting place, a spiritual meeting place for a range of oppositional currents inside the United States and the United Kingdom and elsewhere, but principally in those two countries. Anne Braude's book is very, very good. She gives a number of profiles of prominent spiritualists, a discussion of how it intersected with various other oppositional currents in the United States and elsewhere. Really changed my view of the spiritualists, that's for sure. A very good book. Many of the ideas that are current in the New Age originated with the spiritualists, and the idea of spirit communication with the dead wasn't brand new, but they brought it to prominence. The leadership roles of women through movements that were influenced by spiritualism, particularly Theosophy and Christian Science. The spiritualist approach and theology moved into a broader roles in the society, even as the spiritualist churches per se diminished in importance. Okay, and the last book on my pile is another absolutely brilliant book. This is The Eloquent Blood, The Goddess Babalon and the Construction of Femininities in Western Esotericism by Manon, Hedenborg, White, and published by Oxford University Press in 2020. Really, I would have to say that it's one of the very best books in my library, and I have quite a large library. It's a brilliant piece of work. She deals with the goddess Babalon, who is the whore, the reified whore, the sexually insatiable, powerful, feminine figure inside the Thelemic movement, the Ordo Templi Orientis and groups influenced by it. The Thelemic movement's understanding of sexual power and female sexual power in particular. She deals with the literature in some depth. She also talks to contemporary practitioners of OTO and Thelemic magic. Talks in some depth about the ways that femininity could be defined as a femininity that is not a counterpoint to masculinity. If the Thelemic goddess Babalon could be a key to opening that kind of a expression and exploration of feminine power. A brilliant book, just a brilliant book, and it includes both the issues of sexual power as outgoing, but also sexual power as receptive and transformative. It's much too complex and much too interesting for me to try to summarize it very briefly here. Get a copy. It's a Oxford University Press. I think there may be a paperback out by now. Yes, so I've rattled through a fair number of books quite quickly here. Hopefully you can make some sense of it. And I will just come back some other time. Bye-bye now.